Well, we finished drying the JB weld on this caulking tube, so it's nice and hard. That piece is not going anywhere. It's really stuck on there. So we can go ahead and remove the tape that we had to just hold that in there. And we can chuck that. So now, it doesn't quite fit on there just because there's too much putty there. So I'm going to have to sand this off a little bit to fix that. We're going to sand this putty down a little bit more flush and probably sand the back a little bit. And I just use the sanding drum on the Dremel tool, and we'll just go over it lightly. Try not to cut into the plastic or anything. And this makes a mess. There'll be dust everywhere, but we'll brush that off and wash it off later. Yeah, we just want to get everything flush, and I'll continue to do that and get everything sanded down, and I'll be right back. Alright, I finished sanding the epoxy down so it's nice and smooth. I just used the sanding drum like I showed earlier with the Dremel tool, sanded that. I also used the cutting wheel a little bit just to get into the corners here to get this sanded down, just like a little bit on its side like that, just kind of using the Dremel to sand that away. Everything's nice and flush, smooth. That's nice and tight. It now inserts into the gun perfectly fine. And I can bolt it on there. Works pretty well. Still got this charging handle able to move. So now we're going to have to figure out how to insert the rod here for the charging handle. So in order to do that, we're going to disassemble this piece. And we're going to figure out where this lines up. I'm just going to basically use my pencil to say, hey, here's the mark the hole on the epoxy where that lines up. So now I have a mark there. And I'm just going to use an 1/8 inch drill bit on my Dremel. Again, I use the Dremel tool for everything. It's a pretty handy feature. Well, this is a cheaper version, Black & Decker, but same thing. So we're just going to drill a hole straight down through the epoxy, big enough for the rod to slide through. And then we're also going to continue on. I'm going to pull this back, and I'm going to drill a hole through the epoxy I have in this caulking tube I have loaded up in there. I don't know if you could see, but so I'll go ahead and do that. It's going to take me a little bit. I just want to make sure that it is nice and perfect 90-degree angle, so I'm going to take my time on that, and I'll be back once the hole's drilled. Okay, we're back. I finished drilling the hole. Drilled a hole straight down through there. I drilled a hole through the inner caulking tube as well. I just pulled it back like that, put the drill bit straight down through. This inner hole is an 1/8 inch. The hole out here is a little bit bigger, just to allow the charging tubes to slide a little bit more freely through this hole. It's a little bit bigger than the diameter of that, and the inside hole is about the same diameter. That way it holds it a little bit tighter, so that just slides right in there like so. That way when you pull the charging handle, pushes the rod back. Now this should line up pretty good right there and just slide in. Now I just need to cut the charging rod there to length. So I'm just gonna basically measure from here to here and get that length. Now I'm just gonna pull that off. Looks like that's about 3/4 of an inch, maybe just shy of 3/4 of an inch. So I'm just gonna cut 3/4 of an inch off the end of the piece here with a cutting wheel. I'm just gonna shave around until it comes off, and then it should be to the right length. Alright, we have the cocking tube, charging handle, rod, push rod, cut the length now. So that just inserts into the hole there and just sits like that. Doesn't come out really on its own, but you can pull it out if you need to replace it or do anything like that. So that way when you charge, it pushes that rod back. So everything should just slide into place. So whenever I have the handguard, I can just basically just slide it right on, take it off, that kind of stuff. Let's put on the screw. Just mounts like so. Tighten that up just like the top piece. That seems pretty stable. There's a little bit of movement up front just because of the leverage there. But that'll be fixed once we have the front sight post mounted onto there. That'll hold it steady. I may even put another ring there just for support. I don't think we're going to have to use any kind of set screws. I think everything should be able to mount with just that top screw. And now the charging handle works. So when you pull this charging handle, it pulls back the everything. So now it feels a little bit grainy. It does snap back. I might work on that a little bit. Maybe widen the holes a little bit inside here just to have it a little bit more smoother. Maybe smooth out the rod a little. Grease up some of the parts just so it moves a little smoother. And possibly, if I really want it to snap back hard, I may put a stronger spring on the this piece, but I don't know. We'll see. I'll mess around with that a little bit, but that's pretty much it though for the charging handle. Next thing we're gonna work on is the front sight and get this front sight post. Obviously, it doesn't fit now because we lowered it quite a bit, so that's not going to line up correctly. So we need to work on that. We're basically just going to have to take this thing off and cut it. So I'll unscrew this sling mount. I may actually try to incorporate that later, but for now I'm just going to cut that off. Looks like I need to do quite a bit of cutting. I'm just going to basically cut this plastic off right below here, and we're going to pretty much just take out this entire middle piece here. Like from there, we're going to cut it there, and we're going to cut it there, and I'm going to sand it down, and I'm probably going to JB weld the bottom ring closer to this top ring here. So I'll start working on that, and I'm just using the standard cutting wheel. And I'll get back to you shortly. And we're back again. Just finished cutting this off. Cut that sucker into the two pieces. Shaved out the middle. Just slice that off. Sanded it down. Nice and smooth. That way we get rid of that middle piece. Then this should be able to slide on. And then we'll use the bottom piece. Slides on a lot like that, and that should be good. Now we just need to join those two parts back together to get the one piece again, and then we're also going to join this piece to the cocking tube so everything's nice and secure. And of course, to do that, you guessed it, we're going to use the JB Weld again to get a nice secure fit. And I'll be right back. I'm going to start mixing some of this stuff up, get all that ready, and I'll show you how I'm going to get that mounted. It might take a couple tries here just to get it mounted, but it'll be worth it in the end. Okay, now I got everything prepared. We're going to go ahead and start gluing. First thing I'm going to do is put a little JB Weld in here. Just smear it around on the inside of this tube. Get that nice and secure. Trying to get some in the bottom there. Alright. I got some on there. I'm going to go ahead and slide it onto the top portion here. Push it on the whole way. And make sure everything's lined up properly. I'm just using the way the plastic's put together here. There's like a line down the middle. That's your center line. Just trying to get that lined up with the center of the sight. You want to make sure that's all centered. That way your sights are lined up properly. Alright. Next thing, this actually came with a screw initially to mount it on the front. I'm just going to glue that screw in there. So we're just going to put a little epoxy in there as well. In case you didn't notice, I like to use a tablet here just to put the JB Weld on. That way when I'm done I can just tear out a page and I got a fresh piece again. So it works pretty well for me anyhow. So we're just going to go ahead and glue that in there as well, just for looks. It's not really functional, but that's fine. And if you notice, I have everything assembled on here. The barrel, all that. That's to make sure I have everything lined up perfectly, so everything's working. That way it's if I did this off the barrel, I'd end up screwing something up and things would be all misaligned. I'm just going to put a little bit of epoxy on the top of this piece just to kind of get the initial joint here. I'm going to slide it on. That way there's some epoxy between the two pieces. And since this stuff is kind of runny, we're going to have to do one side at a time. So I'm going to basically make a blob of epoxy JB Weld right here. And I'll let this dry and then I'll flip it over. And I'll do the same thing to the other side. So I probably won't make a second video about that. It's pretty self-explanatory. I'll just have to flip it over and do it again. And it takes like a day to dry, so it takes a little bit of time, but like I said, this stuff's worth it. You could use the epoxy putty, but I trust the JB Weld a lot more than I do the epoxy putty, so we're going to stick to the JB Weld. And that's pretty much it. We're just going to let that sit and dry and then flip it over and do the other side. And we'll have our front sight mounted. So it's getting there. The only thing left we have to do is then get this fitted and mounted. And we'll pretty much have the front handguard built. So this one might be a little bit difficult because it's actually metal in the front, but we'll get to that later. Alright, I'll see you guys in the next video then.